by. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order this morning. It is Wednesday, July 20th, and this is our regular 9:30 meeting of the Ottawa City Commission. We'll start with roll call, please.
Mayor Kaler. Mayor Pro Tem Reed.
Present.
Commissioner Graves.
Present.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Present.
Okay, thank you. We do have a quorum this morning. I'd like to welcome everyone that's here in our chambers and also anyone listening on KOFO or watching on the web. We'll begin the meeting this morning with our Pledge of Allegiance, and that will be directly followed by our invocation, which this morning will be led by Reverend Richard Oglesby. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners, with all the events that have gone on, this has been my anthem and my cry that I've really heard in my heart. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, "If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land." Let us pray. Father, we need you to heal our land. We need you to hear our prayers. Father, we ask you, Lord, to honor our commandments that you have given unto us, Lord, that we love our neighbors as ourselves. Father, we ask you to watch over our police officers and our firefighters and our first responders. We ask you to protect us and to keep us from all harm. Father, we ask that you give those in authority wisdom and knowledge to make the right decisions for this community and bless them for the service that they give. In all these things, we thank you and give you the praise. Amen.
Thank you, Rick. So this morning, our consent agenda includes minutes from the June 20th and July 11th study sessions, the July 21st special call meeting, and the OMA Advisory Board meeting, June 27th, which we all attended. Also the June 27th special call leadership meeting, and the June 27th special call meeting for the airport master plan. The agenda also the consent agenda also includes an appointment today by the City Commission to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which would be Roger Welton. So do I hear a motion to approve our consent agenda?
Madam Mayor, I make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Okay, so consent agenda is approved. So that moves us on to public comments. Do we have anyone this morning registered for public comments? Okay. So then at this time I'd like to go to item 10, which is declaration, and I'd like to give commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. So seeing none, we will move on into new business with item 11.
Recognition of Ottawa Municipal Pool Lifeguards.
Mr. Tommy Sink is going to present today a recognition of the 2016 season swimming pool lifeguards. Oh, did I miss something?
Good morning. No.
Good morning.
I'm not Tommy Sink, by the way. Timotheus, and good morning, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. I had this put on the agenda for one reason. Back on June 12th, I believe, there was an incident at our local pool where a 5-year-old had drowned, and I wanted to recognize the lifeguards and their staff and for the work they had done, and it turned out well. So I'd like to have Brandy come up, Shoemaker, and introduce her lifeguards and talk a little bit about what training they go through and the incident a little bit. So.
Well, good morning. First of all, I want to introduce you to each one of these fine lifeguards. I'm going to ask them to stand up. They're going to tell you their first name and their last name, and that way you can get to hear from them individually before I speak. So we'll start at the far end with Kendall and work our way to the right.
Hi, I'm Kendall Blanco. Hi, I'm Maddie Lancaster. Hi, I'm Sherman Barnes. Hi, I'm Molly Bowen. Hi, I'm Kimmy Jorgensen.
Hi, I'm Andrew Courier.
Hi, I'm Alex Courier.
Hi, I'm Spencer Harshaw.
Hi, I'm Ricky Norman.
Hi, I'm Maggie Bowers. Hi, my name is Morgan Fritz.
Hi, I'm Gilly Melody.
Hi, I'm Samantha Nicole.
And my name is Brandy Shoemaker, and each one of these are not just lifeguards. Some are cashiers, some are concession workers, but regardless of what their title is, they are a team, and they are a staff. And this year they have performed phenomenally well in the light of situations that have transpired. What Tim was referring to is on June the 12th, we had a young boy who came to the pool, and uncle went to go check on another child, and in the process he got in water that was over his head, literally, and lifeguards saw him actively drowning, went in and pulled him out, performed 3 cycles of CPR on him, and after that the young boy came back to consciousness and was able to start to cry and start to talk, and he then was transported by ambulance over and checked out to make sure that there was no further issues or problems. And the young boy survived. Mom brought him back, and he came back to the lifeguards and thanked them for what they did. Mom came back with tears in her eyes and was grateful for what had transpired that day and the quick reactions of the lifeguards. Everything that they did is what they are trained to do, and that is to act in a professional manner, to stay calm, and to act as a team, and to follow and to do exactly what they have been told to do in training. And we practice that. We have in-services and staff trainings every week. And what is unique about this staff, I've been at the pool for 8 years, and the staff this year is one of the best staffs that I've ever had. They work together, they have fun together, but most importantly, they show up every day and they do the little things. It's not just the big things. It's not just being prepared to have to perform CPR or being prepared to jump in and pull a kid out of the deep end when it's important and necessary. It's picking up the Laffy Taffy wrappers that we also love. It's cleaning the bathrooms, but then it's also sitting there and taking the time to do their walk-arounds and interact with the patrons, and taking time to work with that kid in swim lessons that won't get their head wet or won't go down the blue slide. It's taking the extra time to really involve those kids and those patrons and spending time with them and relating to them and showing them that the water is fun and that it is safe, but it can be dangerous. And it's also about being not only to work on time, but also on rotation on time, and having the guards up and being prepared to be able to react and knowing what a situation looks like that calls for somebody to step in and to help out. And beyond that situation, it's also about knowing that you don't have to lead from the front. You have to be able to also be a servant leader and to step back and to know if somebody has something handled, what can I do to help out in that situation? And all throughout this year, not a single one of these staff members have tried to step up and to involve themselves when it wasn't needed. They have been able to step back and to work together, and at different times, different ones have taken the lead in different situations. So what transpired on the 12th in saving that young man's life is something that they do every day out at the pool. It just doesn't always equate to that major of a situation. So do you have any questions of me at this time?
Brandy, I want to thank you also for your leadership of these young people, and I hope that you never ever have to go through that again, but I am so thankful that you were prepared for that. I guess from my standpoint, I want to say thank you to all of you for keeping our young people safe, our kids, our grandchildren, our adults, everybody, so thank you so much. You know, just one thing that I keep thinking about, we listened to the Commission of Education yesterday for the state of Kansas, and he talked about the things that make somebody important for a job. It was 71% of things that have nothing to do with your GPA or the classes you take, but it's what you are as a person, and you all exhibit that obviously very much this morning and through your whole summer, so thank you so much for that. Do any of the other commissioners have questions of Brandy or the lifeguards? Well, I would say we would owe them a round of applause.
The last thing I will say is I'd like to thank the city for their support in providing not only the funding for the pool, but also for their support in many other ways, to the ORC and the school board for what they do to help us out with funding, and then also to the fire department, the ambulance service, the 911 people that we have to call. Everybody plays an important role in what we're able to do, and thank you guys for having us this morning and for your support. It definitely means a lot to the lifeguards. It'll be something that they'll stick with them forever, so thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chief, we appreciate you putting that on the agenda and bringing that to our attention. I didn't even know about it, and I don't know about the other commissioners, but I appreciate you bringing that to the public's attention.
Well, I know some of the calls we go on, you know, unless you're involved in it or you know somebody's involved in it, you don't hear about it and stuff.
Right.
So I felt very important to bring it to not just the city, but we're out on the web and all that, to let the citizens and the community know that, hey, we have a great group of young men and women. And what Brandy didn't say, during that incident with the young male, another child on the other side of the pool had some issues, and the lifeguard there had stayed at her post and did her job and was able to go in and get that child. If she wouldn't have done her job and stayed where she was supposed to stay, we would have had another one. So very proud of these folks. And in my time, we've been over there just a few times on actual drowning issues. This was probably the biggest call that we've been on over there. But they do a fantastic job, and I just wanted them to be recognized.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Richard, were you wanting a picture with the yellow crew with the commission?
Yes, I was hoping they would stand by.
Or if they're staying for the whole meeting, we can do it afterwards, but I assume they're not staying for the whole meeting.
No, I don't think they are. So if you would please, we'll take your picture with the
We'll
commission.
just have you come up here behind the commission and,
Tommy.
yeah. Yeah, I think I have to. Put your fingers on it. Yeah, that's right. Of course, we're not going to be centered, but she needs to slide to the left or no? Not everybody is. You may have to go to.
Oh, yeah, squeeze it in a little more. We all like each other.
Well, we hope we do.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Did you know? That's okay.
Yeah, that's right. I think she wants you, we'll get you a picture you can autograph.
There you go. I think that's it.
Randy, thank you. Good job. You bet.
What a great way to start the meeting. I appreciate that. So, okay.
Randy.
We'll move on to item number 12.
Introduction of new employee.
I believe Mr. Byrd is going to do some introductions of our new Finance Department employee.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here this morning and to introduce one of the Utility Department's stars. I'm pleased to introduce Brianna Snyder. She is a lifetime resident of Franklin County. She currently resides in Wellsville with her husband Ryan, who is a heavy equipment operator. She was previously employed by Kansas State Bank, Landmark National Bank, and she's been a clerk. She started with us as a clerk 1 just a little over a year ago. She is now classified as a clerk 2, which means she has met some of the criteria that we expect a clerk 1 to be able to accomplish over a short period of time. She's a graduate of Christ Prep Academy in Kansas City, and she has 2 years of college from Kansas State University. She enjoys crafting, reading, and spending time with her family. Now, I've covered all the bases there. What I really want to tell you is that it's been said that football is won in the trenches. Brianna is one of our employees who is in the trenches day in and day out, and she does a fantastic job. She always meets customers with a smile. I've listened to her talk to customers on the phone who are not being pleasant to her, and she continues to be pleasant back. I'm very pleased to have her on this team, and we look for good things from Brianna for a long time.
We're glad to have you.
I just wanted to say, I'm a little short for this, but that I'm very grateful for the opportunity to work for the City of Ottawa, and I've had a great time since a year now, so thank you.
Great.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay, item 13.
Request for approval of water supply agreement with Rural Water District Number 4.
This is an agreement between the City of Ottawa and Rural Water District Number 4 to purchase treated water, and Mr. Bueller will address this.
Commissioners, as we spoke in study session about this agreement, this is to finalize an agreement with Rural Water District 4 to supply them with potable water. It is a long, arduous process that's been gone through that preceded the change in management to the utility department. The old contract that we're operating under was dated 1980. These updates are beneficial to both parties. It will upgrade the capacity that Rural Water District 4 is allowed, commensurate with the production that our treatment facility has done over the decades since this original contract was let. It's also advantageous to the city in that it has a overage fee. If they go over their capacity that we allot them, there is a additional fee that we can collect from them. Also attached to that document was the conservation plan that they will have to operate under, and if we have a watch warning or emergency, a water watch warning or emergency, they will have to follow the same regulatory actions that our conservation plan or any updates to that plan, they will have to mirror those uses. So we have every reason to believe that the contract will be signed by the district. We believe they're in a good place right now to sign that, and we'd like to get this, your approval on this and signature to move forward.
Any questions for Mr. Bueller?
David, is the city the sole provider of water to the district?
They do have a groundwater well out in Chippewa Hills that does a portion of their water. It's on a separate system, but we are the largest share of their water use.
Yes, sir.
Any other clarifications or questions? Feedback? Okay, then I appreciate that, David, and at this point I would entertain a motion to approve this agreement, or not.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move to approve the agreement as stated in item 13.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this to approve this agreement with the Rural Water District Number 4. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, could we have the roll call vote, please?
How do you vote? Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reed?
I vote yes, and motion carries. And that will move us on to item 14.
Request for approval of contract with Mary F. Tice for purchase of real estate.
And our counselor, Mr. Blaine Finch, will go over this with us.
Well, good morning, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. This is a kind of a big day. It comes kind of way after we celebrated the announcement of the new industrial park. There was one parcel there that we were working with the family, the Tice family, on acquiring. We had been in negotiations for quite some time, and as you know, Mary's husband, Dick Tice, kind of a longtime fixture here in the community, sold many cars for Ottawa Ford through the years, passed away recently, and we were able to visit with Mary and her council and come up with an agreement that worked for them and worked for the city to acquire the last piece of the new industrial park. It's a 10-acre parcel there that is kind of in the middle of the park. And I can say that truly from start to finish, Mrs. Tice has been a pleasure to work with. She is a solid citizen of our community, and just like all of the other landowners out there that we dealt with through this process, really came to the table community-minded, civically minded, understanding that the growth of the whole community was important, and was willing to come to the table with that in mind and work with us. So we're asking today for approval by the Commission of this contract, authorizing the mayor to sign so that we can move forward to closing on this property and can begin all of the things that need to happen to make that ground shovel ready for the future. And I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
Just a comment, just our condolences to the Tice family, of course, but also, you know, Councilman, it won't take us a few minutes to vote for this, but I know there's been many, many hours in negotiating to make this happen, so we all want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Great.
And with that, I will make the motion, we approve item number 14 to purchase this property.
Okay. Commissioner Skidmore has moved, and Commissioner Jorgensen has seconded to approve this contract with Mary Tice for purchase of real estate. Is there any further discussion? Could we have the roll call vote, please?
How do you vote, Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reed?
I vote yes, and motion carries. And thank you, Mr. Finch. And then we have at least one more item for Mr. Finch, I guess. Item 15, please.
Request for approval of ordinance concerning payment of insurance proceeds.
The Kansas Legislature amended KSA 40-3901, allowing cities to more freely recover costs incurred by the public at large to raise and clean up structures damaged by fire. The City of Ottawa must amend its existing law to conform to this new state law.
Madam Mayor and Commissioners, when a house fire occurs within the city limits of Ottawa and there is insurance on that property, some portion of those proceeds can basically be embargoed. We say we're putting a lien on them, but basically some portion of those proceeds is paid over to the city to be held pending either the reconstruction of that property or if it needs to be torn down and hauled away and the site cleared, the money that is paid to the city can be used for that if the owner would for any reason not clean that up. Most often, we end up having an agreement with the property owner. I would say the majority, and this comes through Wendy Lee's department, the Community Development Department, the majority of them end up reconstructing the property or fixing things up, and it's rare that we need to actually utilize this process. But the legislature has for many years allowed cities to recoup some of those costs through this lien process. This statutory change that occurred this year in the legislature allows for a higher percentage of those proceeds to be held back, recognizing that the costs of destruction and cleanup have gone up, and also clarifies some of the process as well. So this is a good change. This is one of the things that the legislature did this year that was positive for cities, and we just need to take action to update our ordinance to conform with the new state law, and that's what this ordinance does.
Any questions for Mr. Finch? Must be pretty straightforward, so I guess we'll take a vote, please.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got my mind elsewhere. I'm so sorry. Yes, Commissioner Graves.
I move that we approve the ordinance concerning payment of insurance proceeds.
Thank you for that catch, too. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded to approve the ordinance that concerns payment of insurance proceeds. Is there any discussion? If not, then we will have roll call vote, please.
How do you vote, Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reed?
I vote yes, and motion carries. And we have next on our items 16 and 17. I'll let you, I guess, read 16, and we'll start with that.
A resolution to establish a public hearing for the consideration of the condemnation of the property located at 322 South Poplar Street.
And our Community Development Department, Mr. Jim Sherman, will present these.
Oh, great. Wow, I have a high-powered assistant today.
All right.
Yeah. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Today is a formality, basically just setting a public hearing for you to consider condemnation of these dwelling structures. Staff has developed a short list, and these two are on it for now. We think it's a valid determination on the condition of these buildings. One is a fire that took place a couple years ago that has remained vacant and partially open. Now, we have touched base with the owner of the Poplar House, and I'm pretty confident this won't see the hearing, that they're going to move on it themselves, but we still would like to keep this moving forward just in case. And we will make an attempt again to recontact with the Elm owner too, but we have not been successful to date. So when we get to the public hearing, of course, we'll provide a little bit more information, but they're both at the top of our list within the community that really could use it addressed. And of course, we'll allow at the public hearing to have anybody come speak and make their case, but this dwelling at Poplar, I don't believe it's going to make it to that level. I think you're going to be, it'll be raised by the owner before then.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Sherman? We'll take these as separate items, just so that we have a separate vote on each, but, so if there are no questions, we'll move, were you, okay. So I would at this point entertain a motion for item number 16.
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner.
I move to establish the public hearing as described in item 16 of the agenda.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to establish a public hearing, which would be 7 p.m. on Wednesday, September 7th, for the property at 322 South Poplar Street. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can we have the roll call vote, please?
How do you vote? Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reed?
I vote yes, the motion carries. And we'll just go ahead and, at this point, I would entertain a motion for item 17.
Madam Mayor, I'll make that motion. Go ahead.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to establish a public hearing on Wednesday, September 7th at 7 p.m. for the property located at 112 South Elm Street for condemnation of that property. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, could we have the vote, please?
How do you vote? Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reed?
I vote yes, and motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sherman.
I appreciate it.
Okay, I have 42% of the battery left, so I think we'll make it on the iPad. That moves us to item 18, which is report by city manager.
So, Commissioners, I have two items. And the first one is that City Attorney Finch needs to visit with you about a temporary fix we need on an item.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, I'm going to allow Wendy Lee to fill you in on the facts of the situation, and then I'll explain what we think needs to happen from a legal perspective and ask you to consider a motion this morning. So first, the facts.
And we all apologize for this coming to you this late, but we only discovered the problem this week and only decided the resolution after hours last night. The city commission, or I'm sorry, the city had in its zoning ordinance since 1993 an exception to the front, side, and rear setback rules to allow ramps to be constructed. That exception was granted, if you recall, ADA was all of a sudden very prevalent in the early 90s. And we had a structure at the time, it was Hope House, who needed to put a ramp on the front of their building, and they really couldn't make it work anywhere else, and it came forward in that area. And so there had been several recommendations to BZA to do variances, and after a couple of those, they said, we believe you just need to change the rule, because it makes sense that someone in a situation where they need that accommodation be allowed to do that to their home. Sometimes those are not permanent. They can be a temporary situation, or they could be a long-term situation, but even if they're there for long-term, they may ultimately go away again when the property changes hands or someone relocates. And so it was in April of '93, the language said that any handicap access ramp, that was the language we used then, or chairlift, the required yard setback shall not apply. And they can't go beyond the property line, of course, but to the property line. And a lot of times we work with people to figure out what's the best thing for both the property owner and even the neighbors if they were to feel that somehow is an encroachment. But what has happened is that in the 2004 update, apparently that last language about ramps in the yard was omitted. However, because all the staff was stable and we all knew that rule to be there, we have been approving permits for some time. And recently we've had staff changes, and when I was out of the office, they did the research. There wasn't an option for that, so they denied a permit doing their job, and it came to my attention that, oh, wait a minute. I said, well, someone approached me and asked about this over the weekend, and I said, well, we did used to have it. I got online over the weekend, and sure enough, I couldn't find it either. Doing a little more research, we found the language that just preceded that, but not the finished sentence. And so really then we began to debate, because we really do believe that for this person that the permit was denied for, the proposal was the right thing and the right location for them to be able to access their unit. And we also have, since that denial last week, have another permit. I mean, it's an ongoing kind of a situation for folks. And so we asked Attorney Finch to look at the situation for us, because we were considering what approach could we use and how immediate could we have that be effective. Our long-term answer is to amend the code, of course, but that takes 6 to 8 weeks in best case, because we have to go through a hearing process with the Planning Commission. And for some folks, that would be an extraordinary amount of time when you've been trying to get to the point of resolution for your needs. So,
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, there are really two options that you would have before you to deal with this situation. One is to go back to what we did pre-1993, and that is require each of these applicants to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals, which would require individual meetings, fact-specific findings specific to that case, and then a decision by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And you're talking some amount of time that would be delayed as we go through that process. We now have the one applicant who was denied and who has asked for reconsideration, and then we would have the one that came in new this week. So you have two pending, you'd have two cases that would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The other option is it is unorthodox, but I believe it is absolutely legally appropriate, and that would be to ask you all this morning to decide that on a temporary basis, pending the amendment, which will be coming before the Planning Commission and we believe will ultimately make its way to you, that in the interim, you would authorize city staff to grant those permits consistent with past practice. The reason I think this is absolutely appropriate is because the state law, the state constitution, grants broad home rule authority to cities throughout the state of Kansas. Zoning and planning are one of those powers that are exercised both as a police power under the Constitution and as a home rule power. You all can make decisions independently of state law in various instances as part of the planning and zoning process. In other words, you make the zoning ordinance and the zoning law in the city, and you are the one body who should be able to make an exception to that or to make the final interpretation of that. Often you delegate that interpretation to staff to do, but in this case, since the language is not in the code, I think it best that you all make the decision to, on a temporary basis, operate the way we have been operating consistently with our past practice until we can get that text amendment to you for vote in about 6 to 8 weeks. So what I'm suggesting to you this morning would be a motion to allow staff to continue to grant permits for ramps and chairlifts consistent with past practice in the city over the last 20 years, pending a text amendment being brought forward to you for your ultimate consideration.
I have a question, and we can see if there are others. In our past practice since '93 or so, have you had any negative repercussions from neighbors or anything? Okay. Are there other questions?
That's a good question.
Or anyone?
I think, Madam Mayor, I believe a lot of times these ramps are something that's needed quickly in order to gain access to a home. Went through that with my own mother when she broke her leg, was wheelchair bound. And for that reason, I think that this is a good practice for us to initiate so that we could act on it more formally. Therefore, Madam Mayor, I move to continue with the practice of granting exceptions for the handicapped accessibility as it has been in practice since 1993 until a more formal action can be taken on the ordinance.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So I'm not going to try to restate what Commissioner Jorgensen said, but
the city attorney can help fill in the blanks.
Yeah. It has been moved and seconded to go ahead and continue previous practice in granting these exemptions until it goes through the formal Planning Commission process. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to commend city staff on this. Oftentimes, government has a reputation of being slow and cumbersome, and these situations came up, and basically you're turning on a dime in order to allow this to happen. And I just congratulate you and on a job well done in this regard.
Well said. We probably all agree with that. So, any further discussion? If not, could we have the vote, please?
How do you vote, Commissioner Jorgensen?
Yes.
How do you vote, Commissioner Graves?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reed?
I vote yes, and motion carries. Thank you for that. And it looks like the city manager maybe is coming to the podium. He does not need a ramp at this point.
Yeah, where's my ramp? Thank you for doing that on the ramps. That's pretty important to people, and I've been able to have that lesson about the last 4 weeks about some things we do out there that we aren't thinking about people, about mothers that push baby carriages, about elderly people that can't walk, that have difficulty walking, people that use crutches, people that use wheelchairs. So there's some discussions I'm going to have with my staff about some practices we do that we ought to just simply be aware of it. But there you go. Thank you. So this morning, since I'm not working out at 4:30 in the morning, I'm a little encumbered with doing that. I just start out today by watching the news, and I caught Herman Jones. And Dennis knows Herman. Herman is an African-American sheriff of Shawnee County. Herman's a retired highway patrolman. Herman's been through the FBI Academy. Herman has spent his life in law enforcement. And I know Herman, and I respect Sheriff Jones greatly. And Sheriff Jones, what in the interview he gave about what's going on in our lives, in our country, with our police, with our law enforcement, Herman says he was asked by the reporter one of those brilliant questions that reporters tend to ask about, what do you think about all this? And he said, all lives matter. I don't care whether it's blue, I don't care whether it's black, I don't care whether it's white, kind of expanding what he said. But he said all lives matter, and that's what we work for, and that's what we dedicate ourselves for. So I thought, I think it's incumbent upon us as leaders, not to let the moment pass. And let me talk to our police department. On our behalf, I want to say to the community, thank you for the support that you consistently show for our police department, for our law enforcement department, for our emergency services. And that's not by accident. And you have a chief of police sitting in this room that has been very much part of building an ethic, building a community responsibility mindset on the part of our people in law enforcement. In fact, you have two chiefs sitting in here that believe that, and you've had others that have worked hard on that. I have served in communities where the law enforcement is not held in high esteem, and there are some important reasons for that. But I can tell you that this is the best. This is the best law enforcement community I've served in 37 years. And like I said, it's not by accident. We have officers who go out of their way in this community to help people out. About a year ago, we had a young officer who helped a person that was basically homeless, that we had responded to several calls with. He took his own time to call and get this gentleman help. But that happens every day, and a lot of those things, Chief lets me know, and I pass those on to you so you know that. Our officers understand what it is to respect our citizens, and I think, and I know that they have a good understanding that when they stop a person, that there are other things going on in life, in the lives of those people they stop. Most people don't want to do bad things. Most people don't want to break the law. But sometimes it just happens, and I think that our officers understand that, and they treat people with dignity, treat people with respect. That doesn't mean that some people may get they get treated according to how they act. But even in those most difficult cases, what I know is that they treat those people with dignity and respect. And law enforcement are interesting people, because a lot of times they don't hold a grudge. That when they see that same person they might be dealing with, they will sit down and they'll talk to that person. I think they have probably a better understanding of the pressures that people are under than what we do. And the chief's job and our job is to make sure that our people in our community go home at night to their families. Okay? So they do a tremendous job for us, just like the military does for us. Our officers are the front line. They're the first responders. That's why we call them that. So I appreciate the community showing that support, and I deeply appreciate what our officers do for us on an everyday basis, not only in this community, but across this state, across this nation. But nothing's ever simple, and there is another side to this that I think that we as leaders, any leader in this community, has to address. And it's that we treat all citizens with dignity. All. I don't care what their race is. I don't care what their religion is. I don't care what their orientation is. It is our responsibility to treat others like Jesus wants us to treat others. It's our responsibility to talk for those who can't talk, to represent those who can't be represented. Now, understand, that doesn't mean you have to agree with that point of view. But I think we have to be, I know we have to be sensitive to that, and we have to be willing to speak their case at the table when we're deciding an issue. I think that we as a community, whether we're church leaders, whether we're county leaders, whether we're city leaders, whether we're civic club leaders, we have to be on the alert for anger in our community. I mean, anger comes about for a lot of reasons. But if we can be aware of that, if we can intercede, if we can help, that makes us a better community as we move down the road. And it's our responsibility. It's a community's responsibility to do those things. And I mean citizens, I mean staff, I mean community, I mean our faith community, I mean everything. Poverty is real in our community. And a lot of the problems that we experience are because of poverty. And the work we do needs to be to bring everybody forward. So it's important that we reach out, important that we have that dialogue. I've had a dialogue with a former mayor and city commissioner in the last couple of days with Richard Jackson. And we collaborated on some things last fall, and I suspect we're going to collaborate some more and try and have a community dialogue. I've had a conversation with one of our pastors in the community who works very closely with law enforcement. And I suspect that you'll be seeing us have some community dialogue, which I hope that the community will be involved with. You know, this is our community, and we're in this together, and we're the ones that, when I say we, I mean everybody. It's our job to keep the community afloat, and it's our job to not have us be what we see is happening across this nation that's tragic. And we had one in Kansas City just yesterday. We control what we control. We control our little piece of the world. And what we hope is that we can make our piece of the world be a good place to be, and we can set the tone, and we can set the example for others to follow. So in the church that Mayor Reed and I go to, we call that a homily. So it's a short sermonette, okay? So I just thought it was timely to say thank you to our law enforcement, to our first responders, to our fire department. Thank you for what you do, but also thank you to our community. This is a great community to be in, and it's because of the people that live here that every day make this community work for us, and every day they value the relationships that we have with everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neinstedt. Appreciate those words, very well said. We'll move to reports by city commissioners, and I'll start with Commissioner Graves, who's somewhat losing her voice.
We just have Play Day coming up at Forest Park on Saturday from 10 to 1, so there's going to be a ton of fun things to do out there. So just wanted to remind everybody.
Thank you. Commissioner Skidmore?
Well, just that I attended the livestock sale for the 4-H kids this last weekend. I'm just really proud of our kids and how well they conducted themselves, and also for the entire fair. I think about those many volunteers and making this happen. It's kind of a slice of Americana to go out there and witness this, and hope we all had a chance to get out. But I was very pleased to see how much work the volunteers took place to make this thing happen, and I'm very proud of our people that made that happen.
Thank you. Commissioner Jorgensen?
I just want to mention something about one of the first items that we had on the agenda with the lifeguards or employees at the city pool. There's been a member of the Jorgensen household for the past probably 8 years serving on the staff at the pool. I know the hard work that they do, and for the low wages that they do receive for doing that work, and the large amount of responsibility that job entails. This was an example where all the training clicked, and they did exactly what they're supposed to do. They revived a young individual that had drowned. They revived him, and it could have been a very tragic situation. And I know how it affected my youngest daughter, having trouble sleeping for a couple nights just because of what could have happened. So that's probably some of the cream of our crop of high school and college kids that work at the pool. Show high level of leadership, and we should be very proud of them. And that also kind of segues into the emergency responders, the police and fire, and first ambulance drivers that served our community as well. In past life, I was a volunteer fireman, and as such in Nebraska, things are a little bit different, but. We also ran the ambulance service for the small town that we had, and so I drove the ambulance and was on calls at that time. I know how it affected me personally as far as sleep, and had a young kid commit suicide, and wondering if we could have done some different things for him. So it's a highly stressful job, and those people, it doesn't matter how much we pay them, it's not going to be enough for being put into some of the situations that they're put in.
Thank you, Commissioner Jorgensen. Well, it sounds like the theme this morning is gratitude and for our community and the place that we live in. And I guess on a personal note, I had been thinking about that as well. We lost my husband's father this week, and fortunately or unfortunately, he has used every aspect of the healthcare and emergency services in this community. We had EMS involved at one point, dialysis, hospice, home health, nursing home, hospital. We have a physician in town that, in our family, has been with us from first breath of life to the last breath, honestly, with the birth of our youngest child, with the delivery of our grandchildren, with the last breath, really, of my father and my father-in-law. And you would not get that in any community in the city. And I am so grateful for that, and I think about that a lot. My father-in-law was a legend in our family, pretty much, and in the community that he lived in, and he'll be greatly missed. But it's been amazing to me how it's made all of our own children, and even our grandchildren, come together and have good memories of growing up with him, and and sharing those times, again, because they live in this community, and I don't know where I'd be if it were not for this community. So, again, attitude of gratitude for all of us this morning. So, I will move on then to our announcements. We've got just a few here. We've got our joint luncheon meeting today with the City, County, and School Board. That's at noon, and it's at the School Board District offices. We'll have our regular study session. We have our Army Band concert, which is Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. It is free, F-R-E-E, so we want to make sure everyone is aware of that and is able to get out to that. I'm sure that's going to be an amazing concert, and we look forward to that as well. We've had some great sponsors for that. We do have a special call City Commission leadership session on August 1st, and then National Night Out. Make sure and also get that on your calendar for your community. That is August 2nd, beginning at 5:30, and that lasts through the evening. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, I make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, that probably budget more than anything.